Hello, I'm Enzo, and can you beat Borderlands 2 in third person? The main Borderlands games are first-person shooters, and normally you wouldn't be able to access third-person mode. But thanks to the awesome power of console commands, this run is possible. Now, you might think that third person is just as easy as first person, but this view was never intended to be used seriously, so it causes some very interesting issues that you would never face in a normal run. There aren't any real rules for this run, except for no bar and I won't be farming for gear, but everything else goes. I disabled the death counter for this run because I wanted to try something new to see how it would look without it, but I heavily regretted that decision later on because I died a ton in the last few levels. Since I did a bit of testing, I decided to get some free XP from the first Digistruct Peak mission, which makes wind shear waste way easier. I needed these levels because, let's just say, combat can get a little interesting sometimes. And I had to resort to melee for like half the run. That's also why Zero was a perfect pick for this run. I haven't played him in like 7 years, and I wanted to play him again. I just couldn't find a run that made sense until now. Even before I started fighting enemies, I noticed some issues with this, because the third-person camera is very weird. Your melee attack seems to be offset because, you're supposed to be in first person. So that's something I'm gonna have to keep in mind. Melee is gonna be weird too. And when I first tried to shoot my assault rifle, well, the bullets do the funny thing where they fire backwards. I'll get into more detail about that later, but I figured out, at least for now, I could crouch to have my bullets fire in the right direction when I stand in a certain spot. I'm still not 100% sure how all this works, but my best guess is that it has something to do with the invisible barriers on the map. I don't think it's the walls, but I believe it's the barriers. I'm still not 100% sure. Needless to say, this is going to get very interesting. The extra 2 levels definitely helped a lot with Knuckle Dragger, but this time my guns were actually firing in the right direction. Well, at least part of the time. They seem to do this thing where they fire straight and then just start firing backwards. This definitely doesn't happen in a normal Borderlands run, and makes this so much more fun to play, because I have to deal with this absolutely cursed mechanic. But trust me, the run only gets more cursed from here on. I have 2 possible solutions to my bullets firing backwards. Get up super close to the enemy and then just shoot them at point blank range, or melee. Those are my only options. I can try and shoot backwards, but that doesn't work, because I'll explain that later. The guns pretty much have a mind of their own in third person. If you pay very close attention when I fire my shotgun, more specifically reload it, you'll see that's like a sniper rifle reload animation right there. That's not a shotgun. That's just hilarious to me. A lot of guns and stuff like that share common third-person animations. So yeah, that's one thing that happens as well. The game really was not intended for this. But the shotgun is a whole lot more effective than the assault rifle and SMG that you start with. With the freedom of anything goes, I've been using the firework grenade you start with. I didn't want to rely on it, but I did have to use it sometimes in an emergency. I swapped off it a little bit later on, but that's just something I used in bad situations. Another thing you notice here is me saving and quitting. So pretty much when you die, you reset to first person when you respawn. Same thing when you save and quit, so it's a no-win situation. I was originally going to reset when I respawned in each level, but I realized how bad of an idea that was after running through Southern Shelf twice. I'll reset levels that are relatively short, but I will just take the death and turn on third person again in longer ones. If you look closely, you can also see the reload thing I was talking about with pistols. That looks just like a standard pistol reload, nothing like the unique one that Mollywan pistols have. As usual in most of my runs, I'm doing a bunch of the starting missions to get a bunch of XP because I really need this lead with how difficult this is gonna turn out to be. Conveniently, combat seems to be way easier in open areas like this, which reinforces my theory of the invisible barriers instead of just like walls or something like that. Even though I'm playing Zero, I didn't use a sniper for a good portion of the game. I went for the shotgun from Claptrap from Bad Hair Day, and yeah, that was definitely the right choice because it is way better than a sniper rifle could be, especially with my issue of aiming in third person. It has been going oddly well though, and that always makes me scared that the gun is just going to start shooting backwards at any moment. Once I got to Boom Boom, I got to see how Zero's invisibility looks in third person, and I wasn't really surprised. But this is when my gun decides to fail, during a boss fight. How am I even surprised? Honestly, I have no clue why this time. Maybe it's both the walls and the invisible world barrier. Hard to say. Seeing this, I knew I was gonna have to cheese Boom Boom, or at least Big Bertha and Boom. Melee is still derpy, so the shotgun was my only option. Yeah, guns in this run are like a 50-50 chance of working or not. Honestly, my brain doesn't work well enough to figure out what's truly causing all of this, but oh well, I'll just have to deal with it now. The rest of Southern Shelf was going slow, as usual, until near the top of Captain Flint's ship? I actually don't remember what it's called. Anyway, the main issue is, again, the gun firing backwards. That's a big problem with the crazy amount of enemies up here, and obviously I want to kill all of them so I have more XP to work with. The other major issue, as you can see, is ammo, which now that I think about it, I don't know why I didn't just go all the way up and buy more. That would have been far smarter than whatever this was. But that's one of my other tactics right there, where I look backwards and shoot my gun. It works best at close range, really bad at long range, but it also depends on the gun. It works the best with Torg weapons and maybe some Molly ones because of their grenade splash damage. The real trouble in this run began with Captain Flint. As you can see, the gun's not shooting where I want it to. But then it does this funny thing, when I try to outsmart it and shoot the other way, it still shoots at the wall and not toward Captain Flint. That's a major issue, and yet again, definitely something to do with invisible world barriers. I'm gonna save us both a ton of time and just tell you how the first attempt went. I couldn't even get close to beating him because my weapons are worthless and melee is extremely difficult with no dedicated build right now. So I resorted to something I've never done before. I was trying a bunch of different things, throwing in grenades even though he takes very little damage from fire and then completely heals from it in his fire phase. But I managed to get him near the edge, and if you know anything about this game, you can actually cheese him by throwing him off of the platform with knockback. Standard grenades, when you have no mod equipped, deal knockback, which means I can get him off of this platform, which completely breaks his programming, so he just stands still. Apparently he still attacks you, which I didn't know about, but this absolutely works. This is the only chance I'm going to have to actually kill him. So that was definitely some cheese, but I've never used it before, and it was actually pretty neat to use. I have no clue how I would have beaten him otherwise, though. I died quite a few times right at the beginning of Three Horns, but that's just my own stupidity. My damage is pretty decent, but I'm playing Zero, so my survivability is pretty terrible, which does not go well with my playstyle. Overall, nothing too interesting here. And very conveniently, cars are third-person view. That's probably the main reason it's in the game in the first place. I usually clear out all of the bandits in this area, mostly just for the XP. And this is another run where it's very much worth it to do it because I need all of the XP I can get. It just took quite a few skyrockets because bullets are still kind of weird in this area. I also thought about using a rare piece of my gear from my stash, but I was like, nah, I just want to go with whatever I get in this run. It would kind of ruin the fun of this. The next major issue I encountered was talking to Marcus to do his quick quests for some XP. As you can see, there is no prompt to talk to him. That's a slight issue. Barriers like this will become a problem. Not for any story missions, but just a slight problem for a few side missions. With some creative maneuvering though, and getting an absolutely cursed view of his head, I managed to talk to him. I also encountered the, what I'll call, backward bullets issue with these missions. However, there's a very convenient solution to this, literally just looking the other way. Thankfully, this is a closed space and the enemy is stuck in place, so it's almost impossible to mess up. I should also mention I'm going the middle tree for this run, mostly because I don't think I'll have any use for snipers, considering the backward bullets issue. Like I said at the beginning, I will not be farming, but I went for a quick attempt to just see, maybe I could get an unkempt herald. We all know my luck though, absolutely nothing. And we're still facing the backwards bullets issue because of this bizarre area. I went to Southpaw Steam and Power to get some more XP, but this is where the derpiness really begins to shine. You can see here that my gun is already firing at the wrong spot, and it just gets much worse as I progress later on into the level. Needless to say, this level took me quite a while to clear and many deaths. That's why I regret not adding the death counter. I had to rely on the firework grenade for most of the assassins, and that made sense because it's almost impossible to aim in some of these areas without dying. Here's a reason you maybe shouldn't kill the assassins instantly. Yeah, the echo's all the way back there. Even though I can see it in third person, I cannot interact with it to pick it up, meaning I'll have to reset the level, yet again. The most interesting thing of note here is this spike shield that a psycho dropped. Now this gave me a great idea. Even though it's less than half of my old shield capacity, I have another way to damage enemies now. I just rush them and let them melee me, or I melee them at the same time. This helps because I have to get in close range due to my gun's tendency to shoot backwards. So that's definitely a very interesting strategy you wouldn't use in a normal run. I did manage to find a sniper, which I didn't think it was this early on, and it seems to work like a normal sniper. Most of the time. It's only slightly less derpy than all the other guns. But still, I didn't want to rely on snipers for my damage. All the fun of this run is the fact that my guns don't work properly and I have to find more creative ways to kill the enemies. But that was pretty much all the interesting things in this level. I almost forgot to mention, look at this. It's my old friend, the fire barrel. I get yeeted back into it and I get fire dotted to death. The fire barrels have finally gotten their revenge after a few runs. I'm not even disappointed. Well, I completely forgot about the other fire spike shield that I got at the end. That's a major improvement. So this isn't important to the story, but it is another major issue I found with third person. That is the no vacancy mission, and the capacitor specifically. Well, I think the gearbox also does it too, but that's for later on. Anyway, you see the issue here? Because of how my camera is facing, I literally cannot interact with the capacitor. I literally spent like 30 minutes here trying to figure it out, but no, nothing. No matter what I tried, no camera angle or anything like that would work to actually interact. Even though you probably can beat the main game in third person, I don't think you can do all the side quests in third person, sadly. I swapped back to first to get this, just so I could see how the rest of the mission would go. But I just wanted to note that because I thought it was very interesting. It's difficult enough to interact with this one normally, but it's literally impossible in third person. I was literally just complaining about the first capacitor when I realized something. I have to put the capacitor back into the new steam pump. That's going to be an issue. But this one has a larger opening, so I thought, you know what, I'll put more time into this one, because I think it's possible. Apparently it is possible, at least with this one. It is almost pixel perfect. Alright, I won't say pixel perfect, but it has a very tiny margin of error and you need this crazy specific angle. Unfortunately, the gearbox doesn't let you interact with it. I took a while and tried this one as well, but no, there's literally no camera angles. It's just like the first capacitor. So that is truly unfortunate. Two parts of this mission are impossible in third person. I'm guessing No Vacancy is probably the only mission that has this issue because of how unique and specific it is. so that's just a little sad, but also interesting. I quickly went and killed Doc Mercy. I was planning to use the skyrocket grenade, but Molly-wand guns have grenade splash, so you can actually hit nomads, which Doc Mercy technically is, through their shields, which is pretty cool. I might as well do the second part of the mission because I want to try the dart pistols. I wanted a homing one, but I didn't get a homing one, obviously, of course. And having played some co-op Borderlands 2 with my dad recently, I know for a fact he hates this assault rifle, but I'm wondering, does everyone? Because honestly, I kinda like it. I might be crazy, but I think it's pretty fun. Despite the insane ammo usage of it, I like it. I wouldn't use it any longer than this mission. Like I said, I didn't get the homing E-Tech weapon I wanted, but this could be neat for a little bit. Spoiler though, I barely use this thing, it's just garbage. I forgot how bad E-Tech weapons really are, considering I don't use them all that often. Besides this Loot Goon Goliath, there was literally nothing of note here in Frostburn Canyon, because, I am very much over-leveled. But yeah, not much else. One good thing about this map was this Survivor class mod that I found, cause health regeneration and max health is extremely good considering my current situation. Lilith stole most of my kills on the normal enemies, even though you still get the XP, and the baddie psychos were very underleveled, so they're extremely easy. Since this is an everything goes run, in a rare change of events, I actually destroyed the enemy's vehicles with my vehicle for once. And that's relatively easy. The vehicles still wreck me quite a bit, but hey, at least there is less risk of me dying now. The other cool thing about third person is the fact you can look through some walls like this, and just get to see how the out of bounds look. I always love seeing out of bound areas in video games because they're always so cool. I like seeing how the levels are made. I think Bad Moss fight would have been a whole lot more fun if my bullets actually shot in the right direction, but that doesn't happen that much in this run. Thankfully though, I managed to adapt pretty quickly, and even though I was getting shot from all directions, the darter pistol actually came in handy for once. Also the fire sniper, cause Bad Ma's flesh, he's weak to fire, Molly-wand has grenade splash. So overall, it wasn't the worst fight so far, but definitely very annoying because my guns just refuse to work with me. Even though the enemies are difficult and there are a bunch of them here in the Bloodshot Stronghold, it definitely wasn't the worst thing in this run. The nice part about it all was my guns actually fired in the right direction. What a concept. That made this a whole lot easier than it definitely could have been. I don't want to think about how this place would have gone if my bullets fired backwards. That would have been a nightmare. If you look closely, you'll notice that I've gotten some new gear in the Stronghold, well, besides my guns. I got an awesome Tesla grenade, which Teslas are my favorite, and a better shield. The only issue is, throughout this level, my guns tend to fire backwards instead. It was good at the beginning, but that's pretty much all that was good in this level. It was a slow and grueling fight through the entire place, while having to worry about ammo because both my first and third weapon are fire, which is not good against robots. I mostly had to rely on melee, and of course my awesome new grenades, to deal most of my damage here. That is until my favorite glitch happens. This one, where Tesla grenades just don't affect some enemies when you throw it right on them, like baddie enemies for example. This happens all the time and I am pretty sure it's a glitch. I mean, it has to be at this point. So yeah, there goes pretty much all my damage. I honestly don't know where I found that pistol, I completely forgot about it, but it being bladed, which is the melee prefix that gives more melee damage, actually makes melee far more viable than it used to be. When I first entered this level, I was very concerned about the Warden, but with my grenades, he actually wasn't that terrible. They did help out quite a bit with the robots, and, believe it or not, my guns actually fired in the right direction for once. I guess they decide to work when it actually counts. Since this is normal mode, obviously Warden is the most difficult, but I was still at least a bit concerned at the beginning. I will pretend I didn't fail to ignite the Varkids just horribly like that, and fail it a second time in a row, and boom, third time's the charm. I usually don't struggle that bad with igniting the Varkids. This run is cursed enough as is. Overall though, the combat isn't too horrible because this level doesn't seem to be messing with the bullets, just yet at least, so nothing else to report here. The end of the line has mostly damaged enemies, unless they get healed by a surveyor, and the bullets, yet again, seem to work properly, which actually surprised me because I thought this level would mess with it, but I guess not. For the Wilhelm fight, I had a feeling that the bullets were going to be derpy, and I was 100% correct. That's a major issue because I need to take down his surveyors that shield him. The way I did this was with infinite vertical melee. Pretty much if there's an enemy anywhere directly above or below you, you can melee them. So that's how I'm going to deal with quite a few things in this run. But I decided to use Tesla grenades to deal a good portion of my damage towards him. Not much else to say besides that. The fight was just derpy because, you know, backward bullets. It's also annoying because you can't get near him or he'll use that pounding attack that engineers have. And naturally he jumps away from my Tesla grenades sometimes too. But still, could have been far worse. I think that's a good way to say about everything in this run. Could have been much worse than it was. The cool part was I got a Logan's gun from my effort. It's the double prefix. I don't actually know if it's normally twice. I think it is just a single projectile normally. So that's awesome. It's literally one of the 2 legendaries I got in this entire run. It's the only decent one I got. Trust me, the second one is literally like the worst shield you can get on 0. Also, I know I skipped most of the story stuff in this video, so that's just to make them go way faster, but I think it's weird sometimes. Anyways, I went to do Flint's Slaughterhouse, what I'll be doing in normal runs where I actually need the XP. The only issue is this was insanely difficult. Like, if I was having this bad of a time with round 1, I knew there was no chance of me getting anywhere higher than this. So I definitely didn't even try. This level has all the classic features of this run. Difficult enemies, derpy bullets. Even though I somehow managed to do this without dying, it took a lot of hiding. So yeah, definitely won't be able to do any more rounds than that. Even though I normally just run through the fridge, now that I have the opportunity, I decide to take revenge on a few Chrysalists for getting me killed on a good warrior attempt last run. And I figured out just how overpowered Zero's melee actually is. And this is just a random blue Jacobs pistol. I completely forgot about the law that we'll be getting very soon. Knowing I had no chance of killing the bridge exploder and not wanting to humiliate myself again, I decided to just use the freaking cargo crane. I actually have no clue what this thing is called. Since my bullets are firing backwards in this level, as usual, I knew that I'd just have to spam a bunch of grenades at the constructor. Even though constructors have grenade resistance, like 90%, these are Tesla grenades that deal elemental damage over time. Well, elemental damage area of effect, that's what I meant to say. So relatively easy, plus the extra damage taken from Deathmark, which is pretty overpowered. I completely forgot that skill existed until this run. So yeah, that's gonna come in handy quite a bit. It's kind of unfortunate that the Logan's gun didn't get much use in this run, but it was extremely fun to use it the few times I actually got to. Gluttonous Thresher mostly just got Tesla'd. I was hoping to use Logan's gun, but oh well, I'll take it. I only lost the beacon once, which I was expecting to lose it quite a bit more, but the defense wasn't all that difficult. Conveniently, I had an ammo station right there, so I just kept stocking up on Tesla grenades. That's pretty much how I dealt with all the enemies. Besides abusing Deathmark's 80% enemy damage taken increase, that's actually really broken when I think about it. So yeah, that's what I did to beat the beacon defense. It was relatively easy. One of the best things about doing these runs is I get to use stuff and do things I wouldn't normally do when I play Borderlands 2. This is a great example. I only ever use the Loft as just a normal revolver. I've never used it for its melee damage, but it does 100% more melee damage as compared to 50 from my current pistol, which is a huge improvement. And I'm playing Zero, he's melee focused, so thus melee build. But not entirely, it's kind of like a secondary thing when my bullets don't work. I also tried to get a gun from Moxie because it would have been nice right now, but I think we all know my luck. I only had 11k and that's not much, but yeah, nothing. However, I did get a slag pistol from Claptrap, so that's another way to slightly increase my damage if I really need it. So that's nice. For both some XP, fun, and a chance at decent items, I decided to go pay a visit to the Caustic Caverns. I died a few times in Sanctuary Hole, just cause the enemies here are difficult, and I had my Goliath's kill stolen by a normal bandit, but not too much else up here. I headed over to kill Blue to continue my revenge against the Chrysalis, and yeah, this might be a little bit broken. I didn't realize just how much damage the law could do. I don't know if that's also because of Death Mark and Stealth, but I don't think I've ever killed Blue that fast before. But here's the funniest thing in the world. Quite literally the worst shield you can get on Zero, the Fabled Tortoise. I know it slows your movement speed, and I forgot about it for a little bit, but I unequipped it after using it for like a few seconds. That's how bad this thing is. On any other character, honestly, I might give it a shot, but not on Zero, who literally needs the movement speed. Here's another great example of infinite vertical melee doing its thing against that super annoying flying Varkid. And naturally, I headed over to the Minecraft secret area, cause it's my favorite video game secret like ever in any game. The creepers here have two potential drops, and I'm not sure about the sniper, and I really didn't think I would get anything, but here's the insane thing. I didn't get the longbow. I would have liked it, considering I'm playing Zero, but I'm not spec'd into a sniper tree. But no, I got the freaking blockhead, which I don't think I've ever gotten to use before. And let me just tell you guys, this thing slaps. Like, it's hard to really explain how powerful this gun really is, but it is just insanely broken. So that was an awesome find. I'm extremely happy with that. The trip here was worth it already, but man, that is just the icing on the cake. I have better examples later, but yeah, it kind of just one-shots most enemies that it hits. If not one, two. Which is a bit ridiculous. Even though I'm a tiny bit over-leveled for some of the enemies, still, that's just crazy how much damage this thing outputs. Yeah, like I said, I love this drop. It's one of my favorite weapons in the game for sure now. Even though I swapped to another class mod because the old Survivor was garbage, I found a new, better Survivor that also has skill points that I really like. So that's an awesome find here in the Gulag. So we know how good the blockhead is against flesh enemies, but how does it do against armor? Well, that's really good for a fire weapon on armor. That's just a little bit ridiculous. Needless to say, I love this weapon. And you guys can probably guess, I'm doing this whole mission so I can get the XP relic, so I can level up just a slight bit faster to have a slight advantage in this run. Now that we know how good the blockhead is, it should be pretty obvious how the wildlife exploitation preserve went. Well, I mean, decent until the gun decides to start shooting just in random directions. Love to see that happen. It's also a shame I swapped my grenade to a corrosive cloud instead of the Tesla, but my Tesla was super old anyways. Wounding loaders was annoying as usual, and it took me 2 resets of the map to do. But the neat thing was, I found Paimon and Toomba, which is awesome. Even though I didn't get their drops, they are pretty good XP, especially with the XP relic. But they kind of just seem to ignore Tesla grenades, cause, you know, that bug from earlier. It's a very consistent problem, considering I always use Tesla grenades if I can. Since I'm here and I have the insane power of the blockhead, I decided to do the creature slaughter, and it was going really well until round 5 came around. A baddie Varkid just deleted my entire existence very early on, so I decided to try one more time, and I got to the end, but I think we all know what my downfall was. Even though I had Tesla grenades, I pretty much have 0 healing sources besides my puny class mod, so the baddie Fire Thresher took me out in the end. Also, I think it's Pyre instead of Fire because they're actually different words, but oh well, I died. As usual, I am never very lucky with the loot homies. I only got 3 out of the 4, despite picking up none of the echoes, and of course, no legendaries. I mean, sure, I didn't have the Vault Hunter's relic equipped, but come on, I wanted at least something. But I'm not complaining that much because I can still use the blockhead, which, as I've said before, I am in love with. I also found a loot loader, which, though rare, usually don't have great loot at all inside of them, but still, a cool find. An even cooler find is this new class mod. That is a significant improvement, and I'll gladly take it. From the beginning of this level, I was extremely concerned about the Bloodwing fight. That's mostly because of my favorite backward bullets effect. Now, it happens sometimes, and yet again, I'm betting it's something to do with the angle. Sometimes the bullets actually fire in the right direction, sometimes they don't. But you've heard that quite enough already. I managed to score one melee strike on Bloodwing, so I kept trying to do that with plenty of fails. I knew her first fire phase was gonna be relatively easy, both because it is the easiest phase and my shield can easily deal with fire. Once she landed, I started meleeing her because that's actually my best source of damage. Her second phase was going to be a far larger issue because electricity, that's gonna break my shield. Even though going into Deception gives me health regeneration, still, that could get me killed very easily if I'm not careful. She also changes all the skags into shock skags, which was a major issue. One of the most interesting things I noticed was how when I shot outside of the arena towards that more open area, my bullets traveled straight, and they all seemed to just go that way. So that was my entire plan. Just survive until I can shoot her once she's landed or in that area. I can also just melee her when she lands normally. That's a very viable strategy for this run. I can't believe it. Once I struggled through the shock phase, however, it was just slow going from there, because she can't really damage me. Obviously, I still have to be careful, but it was not as bad as shock. Overall, I'm glad it wasn't nearly as bad as I was expecting it to be, but of course it would have been a whole lot easier if the bullets actually worked with me, but that's pretty much the whole run explained. Even though it was difficult, you know I had to at least try to high five Claptrap. I think that's another pixel perfect thing, or like very specific angle thing. Once I got to 1000 cuts, I had the classic issue of this run, and because of that, I kinda died relatively fast. Because the enemies are under-leveled, I decided to just run past them. It's not really worth it. And of course, Initiation also has the same issues. But more importantly, we're stuck in a room with all of these enemies. Not being able to aim, and some of them being up on a platform where I can't hit them in the first place, especially that baddie Goliath there, this is a major issue to my survivability. I was gonna have to rely on grenades and just going invisible to heal up for a bit. Overall, it was slow, but not impossible. And because the bullets firing backwards, I had to rely quite a bit on melee, which actually wasn't too bad. Same issues with the loaders, but at least I had Brick to distract them so I could deal easy damage. A slightly unexpected issue is damaging the mortars. Sure, I could just let Brick do it, but I want to speed along this mission. I also find it funny how he aggroed that shock barrel. I've never seen him do that before. On to Opportunity, let's just say it was not going well at all for me. Apparently, when you do the Home Movies mission and you spawn all the surveyors, you put the lures on the Jack cardboard cutouts, well, apparently the surveyors spawn infinitely, which I did not know. That explains why they are harassing me for so long. Long story short, it took me a super long time to get through all of these enemies here, and I had to do the side quests just because I want the XP. It also doesn't help that pretty much all of my gear is under-leveled at this point, by quite a few levels too. So yeah, struggling is kind of an understatement. Since I'm doing the side missions, I was hoping I could maybe get a black hole shield from 4-man Jasper, but my luck, we all know how it works. Nothing. In the previous 2 Borderlands 2 runs I've done, I've struggled a ton with Jack's buy double. But thanks to Zero's wombo combo of first slagging him, then Deathmark, and a decent angle, Jack's buy double was no issue this time around. That's very nice, because it would have been a whole lot more difficult if he managed to run away. I would have had to go through so many enemies that are difficult enough to deal with as is. The best news though is this new turtle shield I found. That is a major improvement over my previous one, and a new slag pistol, which is nice. The damage doesn't really matter, but I'll still take an upgrade. I tried to get a gun from Moxie earlier, but I just didn't have the money for it. Well, I tried with 11,000 and failed horribly. But now that I have more money, I got a better gun, the Bad Touch. And this is going to be extremely important because my old corrosive assault rifle was horrible. This will also give me a little bit of healing, which will help out with combat. Back to 1000 Cuts, I died quite a few times in this first area. I definitely should have been a bit slower than I was at the beginning. Once I realized my mistake though, I was fighting a bit slower and retreating when I actually got low. Well, until I died here. I had no clue why I tried to ego this bull loader, knowing they have a Torg shotgun equipped, so grenade splash damage, and that's what ended up killing me. The constructor here is also a major issue, but nothing a few grenades and plenty of hiding can't solve. It's also extremely convenient that he nuked a good portion of the other robots. That made the fight a whole lot easier. Leave it up to the absolutely cursed baby turrets to be another obstacle. As I got closer to them, my bullets started going off in more bizarre angles, meaning it was far more difficult to hit them. The first one on the right was easy, but I knew the one on the left was going to be a major issue. So I did the classic infinite vertical melee to go kill them. Man, I haven't used that before in many runs, but now it is incredibly useful. With one problem now gone, many more appear. And that is, of course, the baddie constructor at the top of this combat area. Most of the enemies weren't a major issue, but the wee warloader, love that name, caught me completely off guard. I did not expect to get one of these right here, and it ended up getting me killed. But, you know, I had to kill it just because I wanted to see if it would drop anything. The answer is no, so I just had to take that death. Man, they take forever to kill you when you actually want to die. An RPG loader foiled my first attempt at cheesing the baddie constructor. Like, I didn't even see him there, and that's like a Mollywon rocket launcher with crazy rocket speed. And I had to clear out a bunch of enemies for the second attempt, but that was far more successful than the first. Deception makes the constructor cheese way easier. The shocking part is how my gun actually fired in the right direction this time. So that's pretty cool. And obviously that makes the constructor far easier than it could have been. A second mini warloader? I did not expect that. I didn't expect the first one, but I really didn't expect a second one. Unfortunately, he didn't drop anything though. So that was pretty neat to see. At first, I found trying to get the headshot on Face McShooty kind of annoying, but I think it's actually a pretty neat challenge, and I really wanted to try it in this run. It took me a little bit to actually figure out where he was because, you know, my gun's shooting at an odd angle, but somehow, by some means, I actually managed to get a headshot without a crosshair and in third person. Yeah, I'm thinking I'm gonna have to do this in every run from now on because that is just insanely fun. And it's extremely neat to see what different guns I'm using to get it each time. The autocannons are easy, as usual, and once you've destroyed one, you just have to destroy 11 more that are pretty much the exact same. Except for that one that's over the void, but that's easy enough. The bunker fight was very similar to Bloodwing. I was concerned about it at first, but it turned out to be a bit more easy than I expected. Thankfully, because this is an open platform, my guns decided to actually work with me for once. One of the main issues, just like last run, is the amount of enemies that keep spawning. Thankfully, Zero's deception is amazing for relocating, and this corrosive bad touch is working its magic. Honestly, there's not too much to say about this fight, because I was just waiting for Bunker to stay still. There's not much else I could do. Once I realized Bunker was going to hover, I wanted to see if I could use infinite vertical melee to hit it. And yes, apparently you can, which is pretty neat. That lets me deal 80% extra damage, which is just insane. Unfortunately, it doesn't last that long, and I couldn't get it to work multiple times. Probably because Bunker's off of the platform right now, and it was slightly on before. Either way, this has definitely not been the worst Bunker fight I've ever had. Even though I couldn't hit Bunker, probably because the hitbox is in the middle, I did manage to hit the autocannons, which was kind of weird, honestly. But considering Boar is a thing, I think we already know that Bunker's hitbox is some janky code mess. And conveniently, there's this box to hide from the giant gun because that would have annihilated me if I wasn't careful. And Angel Core turned out to be the opposite of all my other runs. It was extremely difficult. That's for a few reasons. First of all, I couldn't hit the injectors because my guns are firing in the wrong direction, and it appears that infinite vertical melee doesn't work on them, which makes sense. They are probably not meant to be meleeed in the first place, but I did get a good gun angle in the end. Now, knowing that my guns fire in the wrong direction, I only have one real choice for combat here, and considering how much damage these loaders can do if they're just allowed to fire at me for free, that's a major issue. So yeah. And it only seems to get worse with each element added. Shock field generators, I pretty much cannot approach, and aiming at them is extremely difficult. And let's not forget everybody's favorite, core defense turrets. I really had no clue what to do about these. I could not find an angle no matter what I tried against these things. I even tried infinite vertical melee, and that failed. At the beginning at least. I guess I was just looking up at the wrong angle, because you have to be looking straight up to get the infinite vertical melee. However, now that I know I can destroy those, that makes this a whole lot, well, less painful than it could have been. It's still pretty rough though. Thankfully there are only so many shock field generators, but we still have all of those loaders to worry about. But apparently you still can melee them. I guess it just wasn't at the beginning. I also found a cool E-Tech slag pistol. Normally at this point, I would also do BFFs, but I would only use the shield. I would have thrown the law away by this point. But considering how effective it's been so far, I really want to try this combo out. I've never used it before, so I'm curious to see just what it can do. When I was heading through the Iridium Blight, I decided to kill King Mong since he's right here, and this was a great test of my new Law and Order combo. I couldn't get him slagged, but that healing is just ridiculous. So with the Law and Order combo, you heal off of melee damage. This is pretty broken because as long as you can keep resetting your health gate, you basically can't die. There are some exceptions where you can get like one framed and stuff like that, but as long as you can stay next to the enemy, you're pretty much invincible, which is awesome. And that's not even mentioning the extra damage you get when your shield is depleted. I don't think I've ever really used a Roid shield. These things are kind of broken. I'm really liking this. I don't know if I could do any difficulty higher than normal or maybe true volunteer mode, but I definitely like this playstyle. Even though I thought I was decently leveled for this place, Mal turns out to be a little bit of a raid boss. I also managed to get him to do the thing where he jumps when you jump and they go into the atmosphere, just like Knuckle Dragger a few videos ago. Once I got in close range though, melee just saved the day. This combo is still insane. Deathmark and slag damage? This is normal mode too. I don't even know what the multiplier is in ultimate, but that is crazy. Anyways, it's gonna be a little bit before I can use this fibber, but that will be a nice power spike when I get it. At this point, I started to realize this run has completely twisted up how runs are working for me. Even though Sawtooth Cauldron is still difficult, this combo is just so stupidly broken that it makes it relatively possible, relatively easy. Just like, look at that. I should be dead many times over, yet this combo is just ridiculous. So, needless to say, I think I'll be abusing this for the rest of the run, because I've never used this before. I don't generally play melee, and this is not balanced. I haven't even spec'd into any extra melee skills. The only thing I really have is Deathmark. I tried to go mostly for gun stuff in the middle tree, so that's really saying something. Once I reached level 27, I had to try out my new fibber. Now, I believe there are 3 variants, and I've used the Ricochet one. I know the other one's like a one bouncing projectile or something like that. I don't know if it's good or bad. Never used it before. But then there's this one, and just like, okay, that's a little bit broken. I don't even have any damage buffs like the Bee or Deathmark, or I guess I have Rising Shot a little bit, but still, that's just crazy broken. I guess the downside is the projectile's slow, but still, that's pretty awesome. I really need to get the fibber in normal runs from now on. This thing is amazing. And in another throwback, I got another loot helmet, but yet again, nothing. As powerful as this fibber is, it's definitely not going to work against the ambush commanders, so I think you know what my strategy for them was. Yeah, this is just getting stupid at this point. But don't get mistaken, for how easy I make all of this look, I died many times in the next area. The threshers were a major issue, the enemy density there, the buzzards, all that stuff. I don't remember how many times exactly I died, but I think it's like 8 or 9 here. Yet again, I will do the death counter on the next run, just wanted to try something new. It's still a major shame I didn't get any other legendaries in this run. Like, I would have even taken a pandemic from Mortar. Actually, that would have been super useful. My grenade kind of sucks right now. The ground enemies at the top of the tower were obviously really easy, but I was concerned about the buzzard. Thankfully, my bullets actually fired in the right direction. Yet again, the world borders are probably super far away considering this is a massive map. And yeah, the buzzards were relatively easy. The bad touch, I think that's the corrosive one that I have, works wonders because corrosive against buzzards. And there's not really anything else I need to say about it. It wasn't that horrible. You've already heard what I said about legendaries, but you can also guess what my luck is with them. Absolutely nothing from Hunter Hell Quest. Yep. Also, fun fact, I did try to use the evil smasher that I got, but I just couldn't get it to smash evil and actually get the proc from trying to reload it constantly. I know it's 7% and all, but yeah, I tried a ton and never got to proc. I was even in combat, but yeah, that's just my luck in a nutshell. Since some of the robots in the pumping stations, like these sergeant loaders, are insanely difficult, I did have to stay back and shoot them behind cover for a little bit. Besides that though, they went oddly easy. I expected there to be way more issues, especially with this underground one, but the guns seem to aim normally like they should. I'll take it. Well, besides this, if you guys saw my YouTube short, you'll understand, but like, what? Is that a flying Hyperion Hawk? Yes, it is. I guess they can just take a surveyor and fly with it. In my, like, 11 years of playing this game, I've never seen this cursed abomination. Thankfully, it had slow rocket speed, so, you know, I could survive, but still, I was just shocked. Because, like, that exists. That combo is a thing. Obviously, since the health bars are aligned and correct like that, it's intended, but, like, you really do learn something new every Borderlands run. Alright, after that little bit, I got absolutely embarrassed by a pack of shock skags, yeeting me into the slag and then just killing me, because they kept knocking me back. Keeping pace with my luck in this run, I also didn't get a bone shredder. Like really, they won't even toss me a bone. And to add insult to injury, especially for where I'm at in the game, I get a fire lady fist. I won't be farming guns, so I can't really get a new one. And fire is pretty much worthless against robots, so I guess I'm sticking with that fibber then. I knew Saturn was going to be a huge issue for quite a few reasons. Mostly because I can't go into my usual hidey hole, and Zero is extremely squishy. So I had to find a new solution to kill him. My damage is pretty decent, which is good, but still, health is a major issue here. The strategy I ended up going for was hiding behind the walls back here, which I never thought about before. That's probably a far better strategy than usual. The main reason I can't use the classic hiding spot is because it would probably mess up third person quite a bit. I mean, I didn't try it, but at the same time, I didn't want to risk it. Overall, it did go far better than I had expected originally. The only issue I found with this fibber is bullet reflection. They didn't hurt me that much, which is kind of weird, but I guess bullet reflection is an issue for pretty much every weapon in this game. We really hate power and bull loaders. The constructor wasn't too bad because these bullets do travel infinitely, just like the yellow jacket in my last run. But honestly, there wasn't too much else of interest here. I got the data and died a little bit afterwards. After that, I headed to do the Hyperion Slaughter to get some more XP. I could have done this a bit earlier, I actually don't know why, but I really want to get to level 31 so I get my kunai. It was relatively difficult, but as long as I stayed behind cover most of the time, the fibber was doing its job. This thing, like I said, is crazy good. And it was going very well, but I could not beat round 4. Even though I tried it twice, these guys were just way too tough. Because I forgot, I headed back to the Caustic Caverns to go collect my Dominator, which, yes, even though it's not that good of a gun, I wanted to try it. I thought the homing projectiles would work well with third person, but they barely did. It was still nice though because it's corrosive and I haven't had a good corrosive gun for a while. And the best part of Caustic Caverns was of course getting to level 31, which lets me use kunai, which lets me deal even more damage from deception, and has a chance to slag enemies, which can be very useful. I got a second King Mong spawn in the other location this time, but still no bada boom. I think it's almost a good thing I didn't get a rocket launcher, or didn't use one in this run, cause it probably wouldn't have ended well at all for me. The Dominator is definitely far worse than I thought it was, but yet again, corrosive is better than having no corrosive weapon at all. Heroes Pass started out really good, but came tumbling down as I went further and further into the level. The parts with Brick and Mordecai were perfectly fine, because Brick is just like a giant bullet sponge. It all got really bad once the baddie constructor spawned. I don't know how many times I died here, but I know it was a ton. I tried quite a few strategies, and in the end, I had to do this. To get the exact right angle, I had to keep jumping up and then shooting to try and barely hit the constructor. This took a few minutes to finally get it down, and then I had to slowly get through all the enemies, so Heroes Pass was pretty terrible. Very similar to the last run, the nightmare doesn't end at Heroes Pass. Honestly, that's where it really started. Cause you see, Handsome Jack's fight is no easier. That's because the gun is yet again tending to shoot backwards. Yes, this is going to be a major issue. Even though I can get some good angles on him, the biggest problem is his surveyor that he spawns. And he can keep spawning it, which is another major issue. So even once I destroy it, that doesn't mean it's gone for good. I mostly relied on my grenades and of course the fibber. I was just thinking if I should have used the Lady Fist, but no, because I don't think I could even hit a crit if I tried right now. So yeah, fibber and grenades are my only real option. Well, besides Zero's kunai from Deception. Those are a huge help as well. I did use melee a little bit, but that's still difficult because Surveyor is really hard to hit. But after a ton of hiding and very careful maneuvers, I finally managed to kill him. That was just ridiculous. The good thing is that Handsome Jack was the only difficult part about the final level. The warrior was far easier than last run, which was very refreshing. At least only half of this area was terrible. And thankfully the warrior was extremely easy. This fibber just annihilates him. It breaks his chest open super easy, and of course that's a nice squishy critical spot where I can just lay on the damage. Zero's kunai also applies Death Mark and Slag, allowing me to deal so much more damage. With all this knowledge, you can probably guess the warrior was relatively easy. Well, far easier than some runs. Meaning in the end, yes, you can beat Borderlands 2 in third person. I know I kind of don't answer all these runs in the end. I actually don't know why at this point, but you can kind of just see for yourself. And I have to say, the derpiness of this run made it extremely interesting and relatively fun when I wasn't just dying constantly in some levels. I decided to style on the warrior with the Dominator, but because I'm stupid, I got styled on by the warrior in return. And I completely forgot, I got an Impaler from the warrior. Yes, thank you game. I always wanted another legendary, but I would have liked it before the end of the run. Oh well. And to finish it all off, I killed Handsome Jack with a reverse shot. Or at least tried. The bullets are just never working with me in this run. Anyways, thank you all for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Because yet again, this was a super cool and fun run to do. And a massive thank you to all of my channel supporters. This is going to be Enzo from LookIntoGaming, signing out.